Switch provides turnkey electric vehicle charging and energy management solutions for businesses and individuals. We have Laura with us today, who's the COO and co-founder at Switch. Thanks for joining in, Laura.
Thanks for having me, Naman.
So just to start off with, can you tell us more about Switch and what was the reason behind starting it?
Sure. So Switch is solving the challenge of urban electric vehicle ownership. So we've seen a few different trends coming together, like battery technology improving and consumer preferences changing, which means more people are buying electric vehicles, and we're seeing EV sales rise all over the world. And at the same time, there's been a shift in the real estate industry towards multifamily construction. So today, 2 out of 3 homes built are multifamily. And with the early adopters, it was a lot easier to install a charger in your own personal garage. But in multifamily settings, it's a whole other story. So we started Switch to solve that challenge of urban electric vehicle ownership, and it was really trying to solve our own challenge. My co-founder and I both lived in condominiums in downtown Toronto, and we were interested in buying EVs, but when we approached our condo boards, they didn't make it easy for us. So we thought, how are mainstream EVs going to be a thing if we can't get charging where we need it most?
Right. Interesting. So, like you mentioned, the EVs have become more affordable and longer range comes with it now. So how's that impacting the EV charging infrastructure? I'm sure the demand would be going up because there are more EVs and there are more condominium owners who own EVs. But is there a particular set of challenges that come with that for you?
Yeah, so since the outset in the EV industry, there's been the so-called chicken and egg challenge of, there needing to be enough demand for charging infrastructure for businesses to make the business case to install them. And then at the same time, there needs to be enough charging infrastructure for people to be comfortable making that switch. But there's been major improvements, especially in the public charging infrastructure space. I mean, private companies like Tesla have built their own proprietary networks that really are a big reason why so many people have decided to purchase Teslas. And there's there's like Electrify Canada, Electrify America. They're also providing fast charging stations, and even here in Ontario. The Ontario Power Generation now has their own network called Ivy, which I actually used it going from Toronto to Algonquin, and I used the fast charger in Huntsville, a trip that otherwise wouldn't have been possible. But in terms of the multifamily settings, because in the EV space, really what we see is that only about 5% of the time you're traveling that long distance where you need a fast charging station. 95% of charging needs can be satisfied with what's considered a level 2 home charger. So it doesn't have the same sort of electrical requirements and costs as the DC fast charging stations, and it's more affordable for a home or workplace charging situation where your car is parked for a long period of time. So, you come home, you plug it in and it's ready to go the next morning, kind of like your cell phone. And in those settings, there's still financial and technical barriers to getting charging infrastructure in, and that's what we really specialize in, is reducing those barriers through a whole set of features and approaches. And I think there's also still an education component where some condo boards and property managers that we talk to are really starting sort of the most baseline understanding of EVs. So there's a lot of education that we need to do to help them understand which approach to go with, because it can be very overwhelming when you're being presented with so many different options and they hear all these different terms like level 1, level 2, fast charging. So we have to really walk them through that and give them the basics first.
Okay. Are you doing something specific for the awareness education part? Like, has that evolved from the time you started Switch?
So we don't get directly involved in the like education and advocacy component, because there's plenty of organizations that are doing that, and that's their bread and butter. Like, for example, Plug and Drive here in Ontario, they're an education and outreach organization based in North York, and they have a discovery center where you can go and check out different EVs, learn about charging infrastructure. But we do education with property managers as needed before we get our charging stations into their building.
Okay, understood. And as I was reading, so Switch has taken an open standards approach towards developing the EV charging infrastructure, especially in multi-tenant buildings. So how exactly does this open standards approach work?
So the best analogy that we have is like a cell phone where it's unlocked. So if you buy your cell phone from Apple versus buying it from Rogers or Bell, if you buy it from Apple, it's unlocked and you have a choice of service providers. Similarly with our approach is all of the EV charging hardware that we provide is 100% OCPP compliant. So that means that property managers and building owners, or whoever is buying the charging stations, that there's no risk to their investment because they have flexibility as to the different service providers that they could potentially work with in the future. A really good and recent example is there's one of the largest networks of charging infrastructure based out of the US, ChargePoint. They operate on a proprietary technology model, and they recently pulled out of Australia. And I won't get into the reasons, but that leaves Australia with all these stranded assets because they're not based on OCPP. So it's going to be more challenging for someone to go in and take over them and operate them.
Okay. And with EV charging infrastructure, so there is just like the hardware component part, or it's like a combination of hardware and software that you provide?
Yeah, so Switch provides turnkey solutions, including site assessments, hardware supply and install, and then ongoing management with our software. So there is a hardware and software component, the hardware being the charging station that actually delivers power to the vehicle, and the software that controls it. And that software comes in the form of a mobile app where EV owners can go on and see available stations, book a charger, pay for charging, view their transaction history. And then on the other side for property managers, there's an admin dashboard where they can go on and see all the usage at an individual and aggregate level. And for Switch administrators, because we do provide 24/7 customer support for our EV owners. So on there, we can go on and see the status of any station. If there's something going wrong, then we can initiate remote control. So it is a dual product in that sense.
Okay. So would it be fair to say that, having this dual product and taking an open standards approach is a big differentiator for Switch from the competition out there?
There's other companies that take an open standards approach, so we don't really consider that our core differentiator, but depending on which company you're comparing us to, it could be a point of differentiation. But in terms of how we differentiate ourselves, we've really made a niche for ourselves in the multifamily space, and we have a really deep understanding of multifamily not only new developments, but retrofits and the unique physical and electrical capacity constraints that come with those. And we've tailored our solutions to reduce the technical and financial barriers to installation. So an example is with load management. Often existing older buildings will have a very limited electrical capacity, or they'll only have budget to upgrade for 1 or 2 panels. Well, guess what? Once you run out of energy on those panels, it's going to be really expensive to do the next upgrade. So all of our chargers can talk to each other and essentially share available capacity as a way to limit those upfront and future upgrade costs.
Okay. And in terms of market, are you focused on Toronto right now, or are you serving other cities, other countries as well?
Yeah, so we're at this point we have stations all across North America, and we're focusing on markets where there's the greatest demand. So in Canada, that's Ontario, BC, Alberta, and we're just recently started going down into the US and focusing on northeastern US.
Right. Okay. So also I wanted to ask, if we speak again in 6 to 8 months, where would you want Switch to be?
The golden question. I think the whole team would agree that we are working to get as many stations in the ground as possible. I'd love to say within 6 to 8 months, we'll have doubled our charger base. We're always trying to get new chargers in and keeping our EV owners happy. I know that's really core to me. Is I want to make sure that the end users are happy with the product. So we're always trying to incorporate their feedback and yeah.
Okay. But do you get to interact with the end users in the multi-tenant buildings? Like, are they the one you are interacting with directly to get feedback?
Yeah, it's both. Like we sell the product to either the property manager, a condo board, or through like an electrical contractor that installs it. So they're our primary client, but in terms of once the charger's installed, then most of the interaction is with the EV owners that it might be a first time EV owner and they're not most tech savvy, so we have to walk them through downloading the app, getting an account, or if there's some sort of technical issue where it's underground and there's poor cellular signal, then we'll help them with that.
Yeah, I think it's always good to be in touch with the final customer to know how your product is received. And are you exploring the fast charging environment as well, or not for now?
Yeah, so Switch started as a software company. So we're agnostic in that sense. Like the OCPP software can control any level of charging station. So we do have charging stations now, fast charging stations in BC and in Ontario. And we'll continue to explore those opportunities as they come up, for sure.
Okay. And lastly, Laura, so at Epic, we are also trying to connect you with people who might be a great resource for your business. So are you guys facing any challenges right now for which you require like an additional resource?
Yeah, we in the last few months we've been looking for a few different candidates, and it's always challenging to find someone that has the right sort of background, but is also interested in what we're doing. And we obviously want someone that wants to stick around for a while and wants to really build this company with us. But we've been looking for specifically for someone on the sales and business development side, more senior and with several years of experience. And similarly on the technical side, a senior embedded software engineer. And then we're always looking for female tech talent. It's been tough trying to find female software developers. I've actually joined a group of female developers. I'm not a developer myself, but at least I can network with some female developers and try to find a pipeline of talent for us.
Got it. Understood. Well, thanks a lot for your time, Laura. Like, I guess EV charging infrastructure I've been reading a lot about it, and it's like a critical piece in the whole EV puzzle. And I guess Switch is doing an amazing job there. Thanks a lot again for your time, and all the best for your future.
Thanks a lot for having me.